Welcome to Apeiron's Tile and Grout program. Today we're going to restore tile and grout to a like-new condition or better. The problem we see in the field is dirty mop water. People just not changing the mop water often enough and soil loading the grout lines. We're going to restore those grout lines to new. The other problem that we see is that coatings are applied to these floors. These floors just are not intended to hold a coating. Coatings will flake and peel and not bond properly. So we're going to show you a way to polish the surface of the ceramic and porcelain naturally to give it a hard, durable gloss, not a coating that can wear away in weeks or months to come. These are the products within the Apeiron Tile and Grout program. We clean first with Alky 14, then Grout Blast, and seal with our impregnator seal. We're going to use the pre-polish, final polish pads with Dazzle 1 and Dazzle 2. But we start with a good quality grout brush. Today's demo is going to take place on a typical floor that the owner claims hasn't been cleaned properly for 30 years. 1 quart of alky to 5 gallons of cold water is a 1 to 20 dilution rate. We mix that up. We're going to flood it onto the floor and give it 10 minutes of dwell time before we start scrubbing with our machine. Once we start running the machine, we're going to create quite a bit of foam. Alky creates foam to suspend the soil to keep it from soaking back into the grout line. We're going to make several passes north and south and then turn the machine and go east and west to make sure we complete a crosshatch pattern and get all sides of the grout line. It's important to use a brush that's soft enough to lay over into the grout line. We oftentimes see people using too stiff of a brush that rides around on the surface of the tile but is not effective at getting down into the grout line and knocking the soil loose. Our favorite brush to use is from Malish, and it's called the Clean Grit. After making 5 or 6 passes with the floor machine in both directions, we detail our edges with the grout brush and wet vac. Then we flood the floor with water and wet vac one more time before moving on to the next step. So moving on to step 2, grout blast dilution rate is 1 to 10, so there's 2 quarts in every tile and grout kit, both quarts into a 5-gallon bucket. Notice how grout blast, when flooded on the floor, will create a fizz, what I call the Alka-Seltzer effect. The nano bubbles are going down into the grout line and breaking loose the soil that's deeply embedded into the grout line. The agitation of the bubble coming up will actually break some of that soil loose. You notice that grout blast does not create as much foam as our step 1 Alky 14, but similar in procedure. We're going to allow this product to dwell for 10 minutes prior to scrubbing, letting the chemical do its work, and then working the machine north and south, and then again turning the machine and working east and west to get our crosshatch pattern. After we've run the machine for 5 or 6 passes in both directions, we're going to detail our edges again before moving on to wet vac. Again, turning the wet vac head at a 45-degree angle to the grout line to create as much suction as possible. No need to flood rinse after we wet vac the first time here, as our next step is going to take care of any residue left behind by grout blast. We're going to super dry a section of the grout line to check our results and see if alky and grout blast did the job that we expected them to do. As we can see, the grout line's coming clean, back to its original gray color, and this is encouraging for us to be able to move forward with the next steps. While preparing our equipment for the next step, moving on to Dazzle, we had the blower running, and you can see a little bit better the before and after of cleaning the grout line with alky and grout blast. So far, so good. We do have a few dark spots out there, but that's just holes in the grout line that have absorbed a little bit of moisture and taking longer to dry. Not a problem, not a concern for us to go ahead and move on to the Dazzle. The next step is to prepare the tile for polishing. We have to repair the damage to the tile by using our honing powder, which is Dazzle 1, in combination with our Dye-Poly pre-polish pad. We use 3 ounces of the honing powder to work 25 square feet. After we put our powder down in a circle to match the size of our pad, we add 5 to 6 ounces of water, and this will create the sufficient slurry that we need to work 25 square feet and keeping the surface wet. If we think about the years of damage that this floor has seen, here in Minnesota with sand and salt being walked across this floor. It's in the front entry, and it is a manufacturing facility, so inevitably over the years, equipment has been also drug across this tile. Because ceramic and porcelain are so hard, the scratches and damage are minimal, but the Dazzle 1 will go a long way in repairing any damage that might have taken place on this particular ceramic or any of the other ceramics or porcelains you might run into. Notice the machine that we've been using for these processes is a weighted machine. It's critical to have the heaviest machine you can get while trying to hone and polish ceramic or porcelain tile. Because these tiles are so hard, you really need some weight and some down pressure to help the abrasive work. You can see we just moved the machine in a cross-hatched pattern. Again, north and south, east and west, making sure we're getting all of the highs and lows. We zoomed in there just a little bit to show you some of the soil that is still coming out of the surface of the tile. While Alki and Grout Blast did a phenomenal job of restoring the grout line to new, we're still getting some soil out of the surface of the tile with Dazzle 1. We've wet vac the floor using our technique of pulling the squeegee across the tile at a 45-degree angle to pick up as much as we possibly can. Incidentally, we ran the machine for 25 square feet for 10 minutes. So 10 minutes of machine time per 25 square feet. We're going to flood rinse the floor, knocking loose as much of the dazzle as we can, including off of the baseboards. Every step of the way we typically rinse the baseboards, makes our cleanup at the end a little bit easier. Pick up what we had flooded onto the floor to flush out as much Dazzle 1 as possible before going on to Dazzle 2. Dazzle 2 is the polishing powder, and we use Dazzle 2 with the Dye Poly FP pad. The combination of these two will put a nice gloss into the surface of the ceramic or porcelain tile. Again, same procedures: 3 ounces of powder, 5 to 6 ounces of water to 25 square feet, and we're going to run our weighted machine for 10 minutes on that 25 square feet. So Dazzle 2 is our polishing powder. The abrasive in this powder is much more refined than in Dazzle 1, the honing powder. We're physically, mechanically abrading the surface of the ceramic or porcelain now to create gloss. So by going through this process, we're going to eliminate the need or the customer's desire to want to put down a coating to create gloss. Again, you can see we're running the machine in a crosshatch pattern, north and south, east and west. Towards the end of our procedure, we flood the floor with some water, breaking up all the Dazzle 2 material as possible so it can come up into the wet vac easier. Finally, we're going to flood the floor with water again and use a grout brush, the same brush that we used in our first 2 steps of Alki and Grout Blast, to break our Dazzle 2 powder free from the grout line and wet vac. So at the end of our procedures, we've got a pretty happy customer here. We took his tile and grout from looking like this to like this. Very happy, very satisfied. We're going to get the business to do the entire facility. Just to review what we've done for this customer today, we first cleaned with Alki 14 and our grout brush, then moved on to cleaning with Grout Blast and the grout brush. Then we honed the floor with Dazzle 1 and the Dye Poly pre-polish pad, and polished the floor with Dazzle 2 and the Dye Poly final polish pad. When the grout line is completely dry, maybe 8 to 12 hours later, we would apply our impregnator seal, which requires no other maintenance than a reapplication once a year, depending on the environment and the customer's cleaning habits. Wanted to thank you for watching another Apeiron video. For more information on our other programs regarding concrete, terrazzo, marble, and granite, please visit our website at apeironco.com. Thank you again, and happy tile and grout restoration.